Hi, I'm Jeff and welcome to my shop. So this video I am going to focus on a project I've been excited to do for a long time. It's long overdue, and that is replacing this temporary Outfeed table that I built for my table saw when I first built the shop. That was 13 years ago, so I think it's time. This guy, you can see it's pretty beat up and all stained and covered in glue and epoxy and all sorts of stuff. It certainly served its purpose. And with just a sheet of plywood, 2x2 frame, and 2x4 and 2x2 legs, it's amazing that it made it this long. So this serves not just as Outfeed, but also my assembly table. So I build furniture on this, and it sort of needs to be a good reference surface. But it's not. I realized recently, I took a straight edge across here, and there's a huge sort of swale in this thing, so you can't build anything square and flat on this. So maybe I'll sort of zoom in and show that a little bit better. But you know, I need a flat reference surface that can be useful for assembly, as well as being sturdier, stronger. You know, because I sort of use this as a secondary workbench, and this wiggly old thing is not really useful in that sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a frame out of hard maple. So if you're going to do something, it's worth overdoing it. About 3 1/4 inches square. So I'm going to build a frame underneath there. There's going to be overhang of about 3 inches on this side, the front maybe, and these two sides that I can clamp to. And there's going to be about 10 inches of overhang on this side, so that I can manage the hose with the dust collector for the table saw. I can get inside of the back of the table saw if I need to. So there's going to be this big beefy frame that is going to be joined using Dominoes, big Dominoes. So these are 10mm by 100mm Dominoes. I considered traditional joinery, but this is more efficient in terms of wood use, etc. So there are going to be 4 Dominoes per joint. What's interesting is these inside ones overlap one another. And so the Dominoes can't overlap each other, and I want as much strength in there as I possibly can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of these Dominoes and at the bandsaw, cut them and remove half of the material over half of the length. So they will go together inside of the joint like this, and they will actually be glued together, hopefully, if I get enough glue in there. And that should be as strong as it possibly can be. Probably overkill for what I need, but I would much rather it be overkill. So that's sort of the structure in the frame. The top, to be a more useful work surface, I'm going to actually put T-track in here. So there's all sorts of clamps and stops and things. I've got a pattern that I plan to do is about 3 inches in all the way around, which should be really convenient for a lot of operations. And then crisscrossing across the rest of the table, I'll have more of this T-track. Now the very top itself is going to be this phenolic plywood. So phenolic plywood is a really neat product. It's super hard and durable. It's used for make concrete forms and jobs like that. But here, it's hard, durable, it's slippery, so we're great in the Outfeed table mode. But also glue doesn't stick to it. So the glue and epoxy that I'm going to be using for assemblies on here should just pop right off and allow me to keep it nice and clean. Now this is thicker than the T-tracks, so I'm going to be milling down some hardwood strips that are going to go in between. I'm going to lay it out in a grid. The top itself will be a 3/4 inch sheet of plywood that will then be covered with a combination of phenolic plywood, these T-tracks, and then hardwood edging all the way around the edge. So that was probably more than enough description for what we're planning to do here. I've got sort of hand-drawn plans. I've got all my dimensions ready to go. I'm going to get a whole bunch of this beautiful hard maple and then get to work. So I hope you enjoy. If you do, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. So here you can see this swoop in the table. Bringing the ruler up here, it's over 3/8 of an inch at its worst, so obviously that's not really ideal for building furniture on. Let's fix that. Okay, so I've got some rough sawn hard maple or sugar maple It's right around 2 inches thick. My guess is after I'm done milling it, I'm probably not going to get a full 4-inch by 4-inch when I mill, cut, and laminate. My plan is some of these are just have some sections that are just about 8 inches wide. So for the legs, I'm planning to cut sections of a little over the length I'm going to need, with the intention of cutting those into strips and then laminating 2 pieces together in a book match fashion, and then that's going to form each of the legs. So hopefully they'll look really nice. I've sort of gone around figuring out all the ends, where the checks start, what my various widths and thicknesses are. So I'm gonna try to see if I can just mark out and grab my 4 legs. I think I'm gonna just go ahead and work those through, mill them up, etc., and then see where I'm at and decide what exactly I want to do next for the rest. So I think I'm going to make some adjustments to my original plans on thickness. So let's just work our way through that. So my next task was to prepare the legs for the threaded inserts that would take the adjustable feet. So I built this little template, and using a pattern bit, I hogged out the space where the insert would go. Next, I used a Forstner bit to find the center, just giving it a quick tap for the next drilling process. Then I drilled out a space for the post, just using a twist bit. meeting was, again, 35 years of troubles in ensuring the fireproof room. Yeah. And okay, you go through all those, and you still so everything can So this piece of 3/4 inch plywood that I just cut is not the top, it's the subtop, I guess we call it. I'm going on top with phenolic plywood, as I discussed in the beginning, and around the edge, so the phenolic plywood is going to go on top, it's going to be screwed from underneath. There's going to be this T-track system set up for clamping things down, for assembly, etc. And around the outside edge is going to be solid hardwood edging all the way around, because that's really what's going to get sort of banged as I'm moving tools around the shop, etc. So what I'm working on now is trying to get the layout locked down. So I have the positions of all the T-tracks, and from that the dimensions of each of the pieces of phenolic plywood that's going to go in there. So I thought about just putting the middle one right in the center, but it's too hard to reach, so I spent some time thinking about where it's going to be easy to put clamps in, and I tend to do most of my assembly from this side of the table over there anyway. So I think I'm just about there. I've got a drawing on the phenolic plywood. I've sort of marked the preliminary cuts to make sure that that's all going to work well. So I'm going to think on this a little bit, make sure it's exactly what I want it to be, and then I'm going to start cutting and assembling. So that's what's next. Okay, so I'm pretty excited about where I am right now. So I have all the pieces of the phenolic plywood are cut. Everything is fit perfectly. Things are all clamped down, and I have clamped down to the frame or the base down below where there were gaps. So the whole idea is that the top of that frame should be a flat reference surface. I have taken and gone everywhere with the level and looked to see how flat this top is. Some of these parts aren't really clamped down, so it's not perfect, but the very worst gap I have anywhere in any direction seems to be less than 10/1000ths of an inch. I think I can live with that. It's probably going to move over time. So these are all based on the gaps for the T-track system for clamping things down, but this 3/4 inch phenolic plywood is around 3/4 of an inch. I don't know exactly what it is. These are much thinner than that, so I have gone through and I've cut hardwood strips that fit, and then with the T-track on top, the T-track on top of that is just below the surface. So my plan is I'm going to go and take these hardwood strips and insert them in all these spots, and those will then provide spaces. And then from underneath, I'm going to pre-drill and countersink and screw the phenolic plywood down to that base from below, making sure that I try to keep everything as flat as I can. After that, I'm going to come and I'm going to put hardwood edging all the way around. So I've milled up some more of that hard maple material that's going to go around the edge. I'm going to need to route gaps through those sides so that all the T-track accessories can get in, and then I'll decide if the T-track's going to go all the way to the edge or I'll just have it inset from the edge. I don't think it matters functionally, but I think I have enough for the T-track to do it either way. So that's where I'm at. Pretty excited about it. This does not have that 3/8 inch plus bow in the middle. It's virtually zero. So this could be a much, much better assembly table as well as a better outfeed table. So let's get to work on those next steps. Okay, so to glue these strips down, I'm going to use super glue, aka cyanoacrylate. So I'm going to put some on the strip of wood. I'm going to get this out of the way. I'm going to spray some accelerator down in the gap. I'm just going to hold that down. So this is going to do a pretty good job of holding it in place, but then when I go to put the T-track in, I'm going to put the T-track down with screws that will go through this strip and into the plywood down below. So then it's not going to go anywhere. So by doing it this way, it should go pretty quick and be solid. So with the accelerator, that should be set. So I'll just keep going. So now I have to cut a slot into this protective edge banding here to allow the T-track to come all the way out. So what I'm going to do that is with a pattern bit. I create a little template. I'm going to clamp this down here. I'm going to have to do this in 2 passes because the bit I have, you know, it'll be almost impossible to get a bit with the exact right depth. So I'm going to do the top part following the template, and then I will do a second cut following the first cut because that's going to create the walls of the guide. So we can see this here, and I'll come back, I'll set the depth of the full depth, and then use the guide on the here, and we'll be good. Okay, so it's finally time to take out this old warped table that served its purpose and make room for the new one, but let's try to do this safely. Okay, to attach the top, I'm going to use these figure 8 fasteners. So I will sort of zoom in and show one slow. using a Forstner bit, just cut a circle for the one end, and then using chisel, flare out, because you want these to be able to rotate with the wood movement. Now the top is plywood, so it's not going to move, but there could be a little bit of movement in the width of all the length. So it uses relatively little screws, but there's going to be a bunch of them, so I think it's going to be more than sturdy enough for what I'm looking to do. So let's zoom down in here and watch how we do one of these. So as I set the height and level the top of the table, I want it to be just below the table saw table, so that as I'm feeding materials across, they won't get caught and will just comfortably drop down as I continue to work. So my next task here is to cut slots, miter slots in here. So for when I'm using sleds or miter gauge, I'm going to go about 8 inches deep in here, like I did on the old fence or on the old table that never seemed to be inadequate. So I'm going to mark these, set up a jig, and then route these out. And then I think I'll be done with this phase. So I'm going to clamp this to the table saw, and it will be a functional outfeed and assembly table. I think I'm going to sort of end the video with that, but then I'm going to start a new one. So the plan all along was underneath here is I'm going to build cabinets. So there's going to be 2 sets of cabinet boxes, one on each end, with 3 great big drawers on each side, and those are going to hold my miter gauges, all the accessories for the T-track, etc., and other stuff I haven't figured out yet. So looking forward to that, but let's get these marked and get working on that.